OP catches girlfriend having relations with his dad. So to start, I am 22, have been with my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend Kate, fake name, F21, for just shy of 3 years. She had always been kind and supportive and very open and honest with me. We had dates often. Our lovemaking life was great. We had very few arguments, but when we did get into a disagreement, we managed to communicate and come to an understanding before long. I believed our relationship to be healthy and loving, but apparently I was wrong. On to the story. About a week ago, I had started to notice that Kate was becoming very touchy about me being on or around her phone. This was odd to me because not only had she always let me use her phone to make calls if mine was flat or I didn't have immediate access to mine, but she also downloaded games for me to play on her phone so she could distract me when she wanted to watch her shows. Kate began snapping at me for asking to borrow her phone or snatching it out of my hand if I was so much as even moving it out of the way or off the edge of a counter so it wouldn't fall, and whenever I questioned her behavior, she brushed it off and explained she was just in a bad mood. And her constant dismissal of my noticeable confusion began to annoy me, so I asked her if she was hiding anything from me, which led to an argument about her saying I was accusing her of infidelity and not trusting her, and began trying to get physical with me, in which case I shut the argument down and told her to sleep in the guest room. She was very angry about it, but I told her we would talk about it in the morning. When we did talk about it, she apologized for her behavior and gave me her phone. I told her I trusted her and I didn't need to go through it, and to be frank, I did trust her, and I believed her outburst to be due to the ongoing stress at work, which was clearly stupid of me. The next day, I noticed she had gotten a missed call from my father. I had never known my father to like Kate or even have tried to contact her at that. In fact, I was convinced they both disliked each other. At any and every family event, they would often argue or make snarky remarks at one another until we would have to leave due to the tense atmosphere they had created. So, I decided to ask Kate why my father had called her. She physically froze and mumbled an excuse about it being my birthday soon and he had planned something, but my father and I were never very close. So I didn't understand why he would, but I played it off and decided to go about my day. Then, the following night, I had texted her explaining that I had a late shift and I would be back around 10 p.m., latest, which I did, and we ended up being dismissed early due to an incident regarding our manager and a few staff. And so, I was heading home by 7 p.m. I tried calling her, but she had her phone off, so I assumed it had gone flat or she had turned it off, which she does often at home. When I made it home, I noticed my father's car 2 houses down from ours, and so I tried calling him. But his phone was also turned off, which I found odd because my mother likes his phone to be on so she can call him when she needs him. She's handicapped. I assumed my mother was with him, so I opened the door quietly to surprise her as I haven't seen her in a while, and I was met with the sight of my girlfriend bent over the kitchen counter with my father behind her. They both froze and started profusely yelling and telling me it wasn't what it looked like and that they could explain. But I shut and locked the door from the outside, deadbolt, and made my way to a friend's house. Since then, they've both been blowing up my phone, apologizing to me, and begging me not to say anything to anyone. And quite frankly, I'm just disgusted. Disgusted in my father, who is turning 60 next month and has my mother to take care of, and disgusted in Kate, who is getting railed by my father for who knows how long. I honestly just want to throw up and set them both on fire, but I'm just most worried about how my mother will take this situation, as she's very dependent on my father and adores him. How should I go about this? I don't need closure or to confront them. I don't want to know how their gross relationship started or how long it's been going on for. I just need advice on how to approach the situation without causing a bigger mess than there is. Any advice is welcome. Thank you for reading. Update. Hey guys, I apologize for not updating you all sooner, as a lot has happened since my last post, but a big thanks to those who messaged and commented with advice and kind words. As per someone's advice, I asked my mother out to lunch, and after some small talk, informed her of the situation. She was understandably upset and in denial about the situation, as my father had spoken to her prior about me still holding a grudge, a story for another time, and that I would be likely to come up with a lie to turn her against him for revenge. But after showing her the messages they had sent afterwards, she was distraught and visibly angry about the ordeal. I then asked her if she would be comfortable with me sending an email to our relevant family members and Kate's parents and siblings, and while she was a little reluctant about it, she had said she didn't want the backlash from his family for leaving him. I then did just that. I sent an email explaining the situation and that my mother and I would be going no contact with both Kate and my father, and lost contact with anyone who gave either of us any grief for our decision. Now she is staying with her older sister while I'm with a close mate until we can figure out a stable living situation for us both. Now, onto the actual update. After the email was sent, there was radio silence for a day or two before both my mother and I were bombarded with a mix of messages that I'll just summarize in a small few paragraphs. Kate's parents were evidently enraged that I accused their daughter of such a thing, and that they would be suing me for defamation on their daughter's behalf. I then took the liberty of sending them the screenshots from both Kate's and my father's messages, and they left me on scene for a couple days before replying to me and informing me that while they wouldn't sue me, they would appreciate if I kept the situation under wraps. My father was the first to message my mother, attempting to convince her that I staged the messages and that I was being petty and lying. And when she wouldn't believe him, he accused her of cheating on him and trying to find a way out of their marriage, which evidently isn't possible for my mother as she has trouble getting from place to place on her own. He then apologized and told her he was just frustrated and asked to see her, and when she declined him again, he accused her of cheating and staying with her lover while abandoning him. My maternal grandparents and paternal grandparents had very different messages and not in the way I thought they would. My paternal grandparents apologized for his behavior and told my mother that if she needed support in the future, they were available and informed her that they would be disowning and going no contact with my father. My maternal grandparents, however, despite being the people that raised her, told her that due to her injury and not being able to fulfill her husband's needs, it was only right of him to look elsewhere for fulfillment. And while they understand that it was wrong because it was my partner, Kate was available for him, and my mother should forgive him and move on. They also made a point to state that my mother needs my father more than he needs her. Then, Kate's two older sisters reached out and thanked me for telling them, and informed us that if we, my mother and I, needed any assistance in the future in regards to my mother's health, as one is an elderly caretaker and the other is a physiotherapist, that they were willing to help. These aren't all the messages, but they're the relevant ones. I will make a part 2 so this post doesn't get too long. Part 2 update, continuation of my previous post. My mother and I gave ourselves a few days to get through all the messages and phone calls and blocked my maternal grandparents as well as my father. My mother didn't already have him blocked. I then contacted my landlord and real estate agent and informed them briefly of the situation, and I was no longer living on the premises and that I would like to have my name taken off the lease. Luckily, our lease was being renewed in that coming week, and the next day, they contacted Kate to inform her that I had taken my name off the lease for the following month, and in the next week, if she was unable to take on my portion of the rent, she would have 3 months to vacate the property. I don't know how she reacted, but I could tell it wasn't overly ecstatic, as her parents contacted me and asked if despite everything, I would be willing to pay for her rent, just for this month because she doesn't have the money for it at the moment. Obviously, I denied and told them that I no longer have anything to do with her anymore. They then informed me she was pregnant with my child and needed assistance from the father of her baby, and this would be a last goodbye. I then laughed and told them I most definitely wasn't the father of that baby. If she was pregnant and if she needed assistance from her baby daddy, to contact my father. Then I hung up and blocked them. On a brighter note, my mother and I have just put down a payment on a house together and are looking into hiring a caregiver to help my mother for when I have to work or trips out of state. My father has attempted to call both of us from multiple phone numbers and had numerous family members try to persuade my mother into meeting up with him to chat. And as a result, my mother and I have gotten new phone numbers to avoid this mess. I also heard from a mate that Kate is trying to hire a lawyer apparently, so she can get child support money from me. But apparently she has no proof I'm the father and refuses to take a DNA test of the baby, so she hasn't had any luck. Edit 1. I forgot to mention it above as I didn't see it as important when writing this, but Kate is apparently 5 weeks pregnant. We haven't been intimate for just under 2 months, so the baby is unlikely to be mine. If it is, I will pay child support, but I want proof before I pay her money for a baby that may or may not be mine. Edit 2. Just to clarify, Kate and I weren't having issues during the time we were not intimate. I was too tired to initiate due to work commitments, and at the time, I assumed she was as well, but it's likely her needs were met by either my father or other parties. Edit 3. Something else I forgot to mention, yes, I did get a test for STIs, UTIs, and any other sort of infections I may not be aware of, and all the tests came back negative, so I'm in the clear for that. So I don't know what it is, but lately I have had an influx of posts coming to me about OP, who is a man and is a son, having an issue where his father is banging his girlfriend. What is it? 2024, what's going on? People watching this video, check on your dad and your girlfriends because something's in the water, I don't know. Next story. Story number 2. My 28M GF31F of 3 years confessed to me that she only started dating me because she knew I had a massive crush on her for a very long time, and her roommate convinced her to go on a single pity date with me. So, I have had a mega crush on my girlfriend ever since school days. We were in the same school, although she was one class ahead of me. Now, my crush was so obvious that everyone in my school knew. Like, if I was anywhere near her, people would just give me a mischievous smile to the both of us. If we were sitting near each other, then my friends would tease me mercilessly. In short, it was impossible for her to not know about it. But I never had the courage to ask her out. After school, we moved to different parts of the world for our education, and we were not even Facebook friends. Anyways, around 3.5 years ago, I was attending the birthday celebrations of a friend when I saw her again. It was her alright, only she had become even more gorgeous and badass. The friend whose birthday I was attending was a mutual friend from our school, and of course he knew about my crush. There were 2 or 3 more mutual friends there as well, who also knew, and they kept encouraging me to go and talk to her. So I finally went up to her with my heart in my mouth and had a small talk with her. She of course recognized me from school, and we had a nice talk, and then we exchanged numbers and socials. So, with great trepidation, I did some light detective work to find out if she was single or not. And to my great relief, I didn't find the presence of any guys in her feed, so my hopes went up a little. I reached out to her to hang out, fully expecting her to turn me down, but she accepted, to my great surprise. So we hung out, and I found out that we have a lot in common, and then we decided for a next meetup. Things picked up from there, and eventually we became boyfriend and girlfriend. She is everything I expected and more. Plus, she is also extremely happy with our relationship. We've been discussing marriage too. Anyways, last weekend we hosted her BFF and husband for a dinner at our house. The BFF is someone who I have known during our school days, and she's a good friend too. After dinner, we were shooting the breeze, and except me, everyone was pretty drunk, as they were staying the night at our place. So, we were talking when her drunk BFF suddenly turned to my girlfriend and said, "Look how happy you are, and today I feel some sense of pride after looking at you two." I smiled and said, "Well, thank you." Then, she continued talking to my girlfriend and said, "You didn't even want to give this guy a chance and only agreed when I pestered you to go on a pity date with him, and your plan was to let him down easy after said date. But instead, you guys are sitting here talking about your future together, and it makes me so happy that I convinced you to take a chance with him. Can you imagine if you had stuck to your original plan?" Her husband by now realized the awkwardness and led her away to sleep. I could see in my girlfriend's face that she was visibly stressed. So we went to bed too, and when she came to bed after changing clothes, she was already in tears. She took my hand in hers and said, "Please don't mind her words." I asked her, "Is it true?" and she admitted, yes, it was. She knew I always had a massive crush on her, so when I asked her out, she didn't want to be mean by turning me down harshly. So she discussed it with her BFF, who was also her roommate at the time, about the situation. The BFF knew me, so she tried to convince her to give me a chance, but the girlfriend was not convinced. Finally, the BFF asked her to go on 2 to 3 dates with me and then let me down easy, and girlfriend agreed. But then she found out we really clicked together and wanted to continue dating, and well, here we are 3 years later. I hugged her and said, "It's okay, don't worry about it too much as it's water under the bridge." But as you guys can tell, it's obviously bothering me. And I think she has started to catch on too, as she has been extra attentive and loving to me since the incident. So Reddit, on the one hand, I am the guy who is literally going to be engaged and eventually married to my crush, and it's even better because our relationship is just how I imagined it to be, but only 10 times better. On the other hand, it does sting a little to know that she only agreed to go out with me because she pitied me. Not gonna lie. Please, knock some sense into me before I self-sabotage this wonderful relationship. Thank you. Update. So, I guess I should tell what happened after I made the post. In the morning, the BFF apologized for her insensitive comments the night before. She said she got too drunk and that she just wanted to take credit for setting us up and playing a matchmaker, but being drunk, she blurted out some unnecessary things. I said, of course, you don't have to apologize, as I have to thank her for me and my girlfriend going on that first date. After the BFF left, I went to my girlfriend and shared my feelings, and asked her why she was hesitant to go out with me. She then took her hands in hers and told me that it just felt awkward to her. She had known for years that I had a crush on her, and on top of that, I was younger and in a lower grade than her. Her friends from back home sometimes used to tease her by taking my name, and almost all of our mutual friends knew about my crush on her. So when I asked her out, she felt awkward because 1, I was more into her than she was into me, even before going out on a single date. And 2, I had her on a pedestal, and she was certain that reality was never going to meet my fantasy, so she wanted to avoid going through this. Also, she thought I was a weirdo, she admitted it, but after her BFF went to bat for me, she decided to go out with me and then wanted to let me down easy after 2 to 3 dates. Then I asked, well, what changed after the first date? And she said, well, you didn't give off any weird vibes. Yes, you were very happy and nervous as a result, but I didn't get any creepy vibes from you. You were just a guy with a crush who I had an insane chemistry with, even on the first date. And now 3 years later, I think I have a bigger crush on you than you ever had on me. After having this conversation, we went out to have dinner at the same restaurant where we had our first date, and even tried to order the same dishes, but alas, they had been discontinued. Then, we decided to order something entirely new, both of which that we had never had. Anyways, that was the update, guys. Thank you for reminding me how lucky I am. P.S. We will be going ring shopping in the first week of December. So, boys and girls, question for you. If you were in a similar situation as OP, where you had a partner, but you learned after being with them that their original plan was that, hey, they didn't like me. They were going to ghost me. They were going to ditch me. Someone had to convince them to be with me. And you learned this after getting with them. How would you react? Would that tear you up inside? Would you leave them? Would you be distraught? Would you be fine with it? I'm curious. I don't know how I would react. Like, it would bum me out, but I don't know how I would react long term. I'm gonna have to think about that one, but I'm curious what you have to say. Next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for telling my housemate to tell his girlfriend to STFU? I, 23M, am renting a house with 3 other guys. One of the housemates regularly has his girlfriend, 21F, over. Outside of the issues at hand, she's fun, is a creative cook, and seems to be very caring. From what I've gathered, she has a difficult home situation, which is why she bunks at our place 3 to 4 nights out of the week. The housemate works remotely, and I work day shift. Everyone else works night shift, so it's usually just me, the housemate, and his girlfriend home at night. So I don't think the others know that this has been happening. His girlfriend has anxiety. This results in what I think are panic attacks that last for hours, and they always happen after midnight. Crying, sometimes screaming, sometimes stomping around the house, pounding on walls. The first several nights it happened, I asked if there was any way I could help, but there isn't. I've tried headphones, melatonin, anything to try to help myself sleep through the screaming, crying, and raging. It happens 2 to 4 nights a week and has been going on for 2 months now. I'm honestly beginning to struggle at work because I'm so unbelievably tired some days. I fell asleep in my car, parked at the house after work, last week unintentionally. My stomach is a mess because I'm pounding coffee and energy shots. One night last week, I slept in the concrete basement because it was quieter. Last night, she went from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. At that point, I had already been awake for 48 hours. Not entirely due to her, I had to take my mother to the hospital unexpectedly the night before. but I couldn't think straight and was starting to feel physically ill from the exhaustion. So I texted my housemate and said, take her to the hospital for help or tell her to STFU because I can't sleep and I have to be at work in 3 hours. I am not proud of my wording, and I did apologize. His response was, she'll be done soon, quit being an insensitive prick. And he also told the other housemates in our group chat that I was being oppressive to his girlfriend while she's struggling. The others are not sure who the a-hole is in this situation, me for how I worded my text or him for calling me an a-hole for it, and they don't know how to address it. She needs help and I need sleep, so I understand the dilemma, but am I the a-hole? Here is a relevant comment from OP that said, I agree, my wording was harsh, still not great of me, but this was not texted or said directly to her. I don't want to add her to an already hellish situation, but I need sleep. Some people said have a conversation about her getting help. I've tried asking her what we could do to help her, but I also don't want to make her feel any more vulnerable than I'm sure she already does. When she's calm, I try not to bring up her episodes out of fear of triggering one. I've told her I notice some nights are hard for her and asked if there's anything I can do to help her, but she said no. I gathered she felt uncomfortable discussing it, so I left it at that. Are you guys getting noise complaints? People asked. Thankfully, no. We live in an area where most of the houses are spread out. No noise complaints yet. Is it possible your roommate is hurting her? The first 2 nights it happened, I hung around their door because I honestly thought it sounded like she was in trouble, but no, he's not doing anything to her, I don't think. Does she sleep during the day at all? He sleeps during the day except for his few remote hours. Amazingly, she works. I've dropped her off at her job a couple of times since we work close. I was trying to be more empathetic since she's probably even more exhausted than I am, but then I lost my cool a bit. What do your other roommates think? I honestly think they were only here for 1, maybe 2 of her first episodes, and they were short ones. Enough to make them go WTF, but not enough for them to really say anything. Update 1. Whoa, thank you all for your thoughts. Even the You're the A-hole votes are giving me a lot to think on. Unfortunately, I have now come down with the stomach bug my parents had, so I slept on and off through the afternoon/evening. I texted the housemate individually and said I really need the girlfriend to not be here tonight, being as sick as I am. They both showed up maybe 2 hours later after I messaged him. I will say she was very kind and made me some soup from scratch and left some ginger ale at my door. She said she'd be leaving soon, so I assumed he told her about my message. It's going on at 11:30 here, and I can still hear them downstairs, so I'm not hopeful. Going to get through this god-awful sickness before I decide for sure how to address it. I just hope this is one of her quiet nights if she does stay over. Regardless, I don't have it in me for a conversation tonight. Update 2. Posting on my profile. The Am I the A-hole mods denied this update on their sub, which is fine. She had another long fit last night. For about 2 hours, there was a lot of screaming and crying. Per some of your suggestions, I recorded some of it from my room at different intervals. I sent it in the housemate group chat with the following message. This is what I'm hearing night after night. It keeps me awake, and at this point, I feel like complete garbage every day because I can't sleep. Can we address this tomorrow before I complain to the landlord? Well, the housemates didn't take too kindly to that, and we had an argument at 3 a.m. He once again said I was an unsympathetic a-hole. He claimed to be good friends with the landlord and threatened to have my tenancy terminated if I complained. When I brought up the fact that I pay rent and she doesn't, he said she's been paying rent to him, which then adds to his payment to the landlord. I let it go because I was too dang tired to be carrying on an argument. This morning, I had a conversation with the girlfriend. She said the episodes are triggered by medication she uses to treat some sleep disorders/mental health concerns, and she's partially aware of the episodes occurring. She expressed why it's important to her to stay in a less toxic environment than her home, but I also tried to explain how badly this is impacting me. She and I are at an impasse. We both sympathize with the other but don't want to budge on our stances. Then the housemate blew up because she and I had talked about it. At this point, the other guys were home too, and it was honestly a chaotic mess of everyone talking and shouting over each other. I still have a headache from it. The landlord is supposed to be coming over to inspect some maintenance issues later this week, and I'm going to tell him everything while he's here. The housemate is calling me an a-hole because the complaint might result in her having to stay at her place. Odd, because I thought he was good friends with the landlord, which is not a good environment for her emotionally. Surprisingly, the other housemates are also saying I'm the a-hole because they're afraid this will put them in jeopardy. I think their opinions would be different if they were actually going through it while they were trying to sleep during the day. At this point, I am just going to be trying to sleep and pack because I don't see this ending well. It kind of bugged me earlier when the housemate said to OP, "You're being oppressive." How are you being oppressive for wanting to try to sleep? Huh? Anyway, continuing on that point, what do you guys think? Do you think OP's the a-hole? Do you think the housemate is the a-hole? Do you think that the girlfriend is the a-hole? I hope not. She can't really control it. Obviously, the text message OP sent wasn't the best thing, and then the housemate replied with an equally bad text message, and then it seems like they were off to the races. I think there is a way for this conflict to be talked about and resolved, but I feel like they might need to do it with cooler heads prevailing, because right now it seems like everyone's angry at everyone. But that's humanity. We misconstrued and miscommunicate and do stupid things. But anyway, I'm done. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.